The sound that pierced the March air outside Lenox Square Mall wasn't the usual bustle of shoppers or traffic. It was the raw, guttural sobbing of a man whose world had just collapsed. Davis Adeleke stood there in his wrinkled designer suit, looking like success on the outside while dying on the inside. But it was the man beside him who caught my attention. An older gentleman whose face carried the weight of a terrible truth he could no longer bear to keep silent. "Brother, please," the older man's voice cracked. "We have to tell someone. We cannot let her destroy another family." That man was Richard Becaire, and what he was about to reveal would expose one of the most sophisticated matrimonial fraud schemes ever documented, a criminal enterprise that had been hiding in plain sight, protected by the very laws designed to prevent it. 3 hours earlier, Davis had walked out of Fulton County Family Court a broken man. His $1.8 million Buckhead mansion, gone to his ex-wife. Primary custody of his 2 children lost. The next 10 years of his financial life, signed away to fund the lifestyle of the woman who had systematically destroyed him. But the man comforting him wasn't just any friend. Richard Becaire was Victoria's own brother, the man who had raised her, walked her down the aisle, and unknowingly helped her orchestrate one of the most devastating betrayals imaginable. "This is my brother-in-law," Richard said when he noticed my concerned approach. "Today, he lost everything to my sister, and I came here because I failed them both." Richard's hands trembled as the weight of his realization hit him. "I thought I was protecting you, Davis. I never saw her for what she really was. God forgive me, I gave her the tools to take everything you worked for." The story began 25 years earlier in Lagos, Nigeria, when a car accident claimed the lives of Richard and Victoria's parents. Richard, barely an adult himself, took on the responsibility of raising his 15-year-old sister. He worked 3 jobs, sacrificed his own dreams, believing he was shaping someone who would honor the values he'd taught her. "I walked her down the aisle," Richard whispered, his voice breaking with the memory. "I put her hand in yours and told you that you were getting the most precious gift I could give. I believed that with all my heart." What Richard didn't know was that every family dinner, where he'd proudly shared stories of Davis's success, his generosity, his trusting nature, Victoria had been taking mental notes. Every detail about Davis's business, his daily routines, his hopes and dreams, all of it was being cataloged and stored for future use. "My sister used my own words against you," Richard realized with growing horror. "Every time I told her how hardworking you were, how generous, how trusting, she was learning your vulnerabilities." Davis had arrived in Atlanta 15 years earlier with nothing but a toolbox and unshakable faith. By 2019, through sheer determination and honest work, he owned multiple properties across metro Atlanta and lived in a mansion that had been featured in magazines. But success felt hollow without someone to share it with. That's when he met Victoria at a Nigerian cultural festival in 2020. Their 18-month courtship felt like something out of a fairy tale, culminating in a $200,000 wedding that Davis believed would be the foundation of their perfect life together. What Davis didn't know was that Victoria had already begun studying him during their courtship, documenting his routines, his weaknesses, his assets, his character. The courtship wasn't romance. It was reconnaissance. Victoria arrived in Atlanta in early 2021, and for the first year, Davis felt like the luckiest man alive. He enrolled her in nursing school at Emory University, bought her a Mercedes-Benz, opened joint bank accounts, and added her name to several properties. Every generous gesture born from love became another weapon she would later use against him.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
The change began like slow poison. Victoria started attending women's groups in Atlanta's West End, making friends with other African women who'd come to America through marriage. She began questioning Davis's decisions, accusing him of being too traditional, too controlling. "I was literally funding my own destruction," Davis would later realize, the irony cutting deep. But those women's meetings weren't what they appeared to be. Victoria was attending strategy sessions run by Grace Adeleke, a woman who had perfected matrimonial fraud into a profitable enterprise targeting successful immigrant men. She taught them everything, revealed Christine Okafor, a former participant who had grown disturbed by what she witnessed at Grace's workshops. How to document fake abuse, how to manipulate children against their fathers, how to time divorces for maximum financial damage. Grace had developed what she called the timeline, a precise 18 to 24-month plan for destroying marriages while maximizing settlements. She charged a success fee of 20% of whatever the women managed to extract from their divorces. For nearly 2 years, while Davis worked 16-hour days building what he thought was their future together, Victoria was systematically documenting every normal marital interaction as evidence of abuse. Text messages asking about her whereabouts became stalking in her documentation. Discussions about their family budget became financial control. But the most devastating betrayal was still hidden from Davis. "Tell him about Anthony," Richard urged, his voice heavy with shame. Davis's tears intensified as he spoke the name that haunted him. Anthony Oluwazian, her ex-boyfriend from Lagos. He'd been living in Atlanta illegally for 3 years, and he was a convicted felon. While Davis thought his wife was attending nursing school, she was actually rebuilding her relationship with a man who'd served 2 years in federal prison for drug trafficking. The security cameras that Davis had installed to protect his family had instead documented months of betrayal. "This man was coming to your house for months while you were at work," Richard said bitterly. "Playing with your children, planning to steal your entire life." The memory that haunted Davis most was the night before Victoria filed for divorce. "We had family dinner. Anthony was there as her cousin, who was helping her understand American systems. I thanked him for being so supportive of my wife." Within 48 hours of Victoria filing for divorce, accompanied by a restraining order claiming emotional abuse, Anthony had moved into the Buckhead mansion while Davis was forced into a studio apartment, banned from his own home and children. Victoria's evidence against Davis appeared comprehensive. Recorded conversations taken out of context, documented text messages reframed as harassment, testimony from 3 other women from Grace's network. But none of it was what it appeared to be. The controlling text messages were Davis asking what time Victoria would be home so he could prepare dinner for the family. The financial abuse was him wanting to discuss their budget like any responsible husband and father. Judge Patricia Moorhead's ruling was surgical in its destruction. Davis's $1.8 million Buckhead mansion transferred entirely to Victoria. $12,000 monthly spousal support for 10 years. All children's expenses, including private school tuition. $85,000 in Victoria's legal fees. "She gets my house, my children, and I have to pay for her boyfriend to live the life I built," Davis said, the reality of his situation sinking in. "I'm now an employee funding my replacement's luxury lifestyle." The most devastating weapon Victoria had used wasn't financial, it was their own children. Through months of systematic psychological manipulation, she had convinced 8-year-old Grace and 5-year-old Michael that their father was dangerous. "Daddy made mommy cry," Grace had told Davis during a supervised visitation, her young voice filled with programmed fear. "Mommy says you're mean, and we have to protect her." Dr. Helen Kumari, who evaluated the family, documented clear signs of parental alienation in her report, but her recommendations were ignored by the court. The children who had once adored their father now flinched when he tried to hug them. Standing in that mall parking lot, I realized this wasn't just about one man's tragedy. It was about Richard's painful journey from unknowing enabler to horrified witness to potential savior. Richard's transformation had been gradual and devastating. The moment he truly understood what Victoria had become was when she approached him asking if he knew any other successful men who might be looking for wives. "She wanted me to help her find her next victim," Richard revealed, his voice filled with disgust. "She asked about your business associates, Davis. She's already planning her next operation." When Richard confronted Victoria about the affair and her schemes, she showed no remorse. "She laughed at me," Richard said. "She told me you were a fool for trusting her, that American law would protect her no matter what she did to you." But Victoria's most chilling statement cut Richard to the core. "Besides, brother, you helped me do this. Every story you told me about Davis's kindness, his generosity, you gave me the weapons I used against him." The accusation contained enough truth to devastate Richard, but it also opened his eyes to the scope of the operation. Victoria wasn't working alone. She was part of a sophisticated criminal network. At the center was Grace Adeleke, who had married and divorced 3 wealthy men over 15 years, walking away with over $4 million in combined settlements. Her workshops operated like a finishing school for predators, teaching vulnerable immigrant women how to weaponize America's domestic violence laws. The cruelest aspect was how the perpetrators celebrated their victories publicly. Victoria regularly posted photos from her Buckhead mansion on social media, showing herself and Anthony enjoying the luxury that Davis's court-ordered support payments provided. "Living my best life in my beautiful home," read one post, complete with photos of Anthony playing with Davis's children in the backyard Davis had landscaped himself. The psychological cruelty was staggering.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
The network had expanded far beyond Atlanta. Richard's investigation revealed similar operations in Houston, Dallas, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. The tactics were too similar across cities to be coincidental, suggesting a coordinated national enterprise worth tens of millions in stolen assets. The New American Woman Academy was Grace's latest venture, a seemingly legitimate online platform that promised to help immigrant women understand their rights and achieve financial independence in America. For $2,997, women could access a comprehensive course that included detailed instructions on creating evidence of abuse through strategic recording, screenshot capture, and witness cultivation. The private community forum connected over 800 women across 12 states, all sharing strategies, celebrating victories, and supporting each other through their journeys to independence. Victoria was listed as a premium mentor, offering one-on-one coaching sessions for $500 per hour. Her mentor profile was chilling in its brazenness, specializing in high-asset divorces, child custody strategy, and post-divorce lifestyle optimization. Successfully secured $2.5 million plus settlement plus ongoing support. Richard's worst fears were confirmed when he discovered that Victoria had already begun cultivating her next victim, Dr. Emmanuel Okafor, a successful cardiologist who had recently moved to Atlanta. She had presented herself as a recently widowed single mother, claiming Anthony was her late husband's brother helping her raise the children. "She's using everything she learned from destroying you to craft the perfect victim narrative for her next target," Richard realized with growing alarm. Dr. Okafor thinks he's helping a grieving widow find love again. He has no idea he's being recruited by a professional predator. With Dr. Okafor's cooperation and Richard's inside knowledge, law enforcement was able to conduct a carefully planned investigation into Victoria's ongoing criminal activities. Hidden recording devices captured Victoria's sophisticated manipulation techniques in real time, as well as her coordination with Anthony and other network members. Remember, you want to create a pattern of increasing fear and isolation. Victoria could be heard telling one of her ments. Start with small things, questioning why he wants to know where you're going, why he checks your phone. Build up to bigger allegations gradually. The key is documentation. Every text, every conversation, every normal husband behavior gets reframed as control and abuse. The recordings also revealed the financial scope of Victoria's crimes. She was earning substantial income from her mentoring services, receiving commissions from lawyers who handled network cases, and maintaining multiple revenue streams from her various criminal activities. Victoria's arrest on federal charges of conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering marked the first successful prosecution of a matrimonial fraud network member. The prosecution's evidence was overwhelming, not just the recordings of Victoria coaching other women to fabricate abuse allegations, but her systematic documentation of normal marital interactions as evidence of control and her coordination with criminal accomplices. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution of $3.2 million to Davis and other victims. But the victory was bittersweet. The conviction didn't end the criminal enterprise. Grace Adeleke fled to Nigeria before she could be arrested, taking with her millions in criminal proceeds. Several other key figures also disappeared, making it clear that the network had sophisticated escape plans and international connections. The psychological recovery for victims like Davis was an ongoing process. He continued therapy and had begun participating in support groups for men who had been victimized by matrimonial fraud. Meeting other men who've been through similar experiences helps combat the isolation and self-doubt, explained Dr. Marcus Thompson, Davis's therapist. These victims often feel like they're the only ones who've experienced this type of systematic betrayal. Richard had transformed his guilt into action, becoming an advocate for prevention and education. He began speaking at community events and working with law enforcement to identify potential victims and criminal operators. His efforts had already prevented at least 3 confirmed cases of matrimonial fraud. The children remained the most tragic casualties of Victoria's crimes. Grace and Michael continued to live with Victoria's parents while their mother served her prison sentence, but their psychological programming against their father remained largely intact. Deprogramming children who've been systematically turned against a parent is extremely difficult, Dr. Kumari explained. These children have been taught that their safety and well-being depend on rejecting their father. Undoing that kind of psychological manipulation takes years, and sometimes the damage is permanent. Davis maintained hope that he would eventually be reunited with his children, but he understood that the damage might be irreversible. "I love them unconditionally, and that will never change," he said. "Whether they're ever able to understand what really happened is beyond my control. All I can do is continue to love them and hope that someday the truth will reach them." The financial devastation continued. Despite Victoria's conviction, Davis was still required to make his court-ordered support payments while her case worked through the appeals process. He had taken on multiple jobs to meet the payments, working as a contractor during the day and driving for a rideshare service at night. "The system is designed to protect people like Victoria," Davis reflected. "Even after she's been convicted of fraud, I'm still paying to support the lifestyle she's living in prison, while my children believe I'm the monster." The case exposed fundamental flaws in how the legal system handles domestic relations. Well-meaning laws designed to protect legitimate abuse victims were being systematically exploited by criminals who understood exactly how to manipulate them. "These networks study our legal system better than most lawyers," explained Detective Sarah Martinez, who led the investigation. "They know exactly what evidence is needed, what language to use, what timing will be most effective. They've turned protection orders and divorce proceedings into precision weapons." The most disturbing aspect was how perfectly legal most of it had been until the very end. Victoria had committed fraud, extortion, and child abuse, but she had done it through legal channels specifically designed to protect people in her position.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
The question that haunts every person who hears this story isn't whether it could happen to them. The question is far more fundamental. In a world where love has become a weapon, where marriage has been weaponized into theft, where the justice system can be manipulated to protect criminals and punish victims, how do you ever trust again? Davis Adeleke learned the hardest truth of all, that loving someone completely and trusting them absolutely can be the most dangerous thing you can do. His only crime was believing that when you give someone your heart, your home, and your future, they'll treasure those gifts rather than use them to destroy you. The Atlanta betrayal continues every day, in courtrooms across America, as the system designed to protect families becomes the instrument of their destruction. And somewhere, right now, another good person is falling in love with someone who's planning their annihilation from the moment they say, "I love you too." But there's hope in the darkness. Richard Becker's courage to speak truth, Dr. Okafor's willingness to help law enforcement, and Davis's determination to rebuild his life. All of these prove that evil doesn't always win. Sometimes justice is delayed, but it's not denied. The perfect crime, hiding in plain sight, protected by laws meant to prevent it, until brave people decide to fight back. If this story has moved you, if it's opened your eyes to a reality that thousands of good people face every day, then don't let it end here. Share this story. Talk about it. The only way these predators succeed is in silence and isolation. For the Davis Adelekes of the world, men and women who've loved completely and lost everything, your voices matter. Your truth matters. And slowly, story by story, case by case, we're building a world where love doesn't have to be dangerous. Hit that like button if this story impacted you. Subscribe to stay informed about cases like this one. Because in a world where the system can be weaponized against the innocent, awareness is our first line of defense. The Atlanta betrayal is over for Davis and Victoria. But the fight for justice and the fight to love safely continues every single day.